I could never, the cables, I didn't understand the chord. I couldn't wind.
Today is the 29th day of Tishrei, the 31st of October, and we're up to chapter 25 in Shorosh Mitzvos Tefillah, page 256 in Derech Mitzvosecha. And this chapter is going to, at the very end at least, bring it all together. Like why have we been talking so much about how there's a difference between what's in emanation and what's in creation, formation, and action. I've said it a few times. I think before we started, I even already said the conclusion, where he's going with all of this. It's a very important topic, but how is it related to prayer? So we've been explaining it all the time that this also affects how we talk, and obviously prayer is part of talking. But he's not only going to be talking about that. He wants to bring it into the order of the prayer itself. He wants to explain why is the prayer structured the way that it's structured. So specifically, he's going to bring it into a connection with Psukei de Zimra, the psalms that we say before we come into the blessings of Shema. And we still need to have this conversation because there's a very big topic here that's lurking in the shadows. And we haven't discussed it fully yet. I mentioned it before, after Rosh Hashanah, I mentioned it once, but we haven't had a chance yet to really get into it, which is, there's a whole topic here of what's more important, learning Torah or praying. And why are there even two, call it, pillars of serving God? When you say acts of loving kindness, Gemilut Chasadim, that's the third pillar. So that you can say, but that's between man and man. But definitely prayer and Torah, they relate to the relationship between man and God. So why are there two pillars? Why do you need both? What's the difference between them? And why is it that Chassidus stresses prayer over Torah? There's no question that it stresses it more. Most of the... Okay, you say the Torah is a little bit ben adam le'atzmo. Yeah, of course. But still, it's my main relationship with Hashem, in the sense that it's my intellectual relationship with Hashem, and I would say that my prayer is my heartfelt relationship with Hashem. So, why does Chassidus stress prayer so much? I said more, but if you don't like the word more, so say so much. It stresses as much more than it was stressed during all the generations. Why? So all these questions, they're lurking in the shadows here, and this is all meant to answer those questions, even though he may not explicitly say that he's dealing with this. So we'll get to it at some point. Let's start chapter 25. על פי זה יובן מה שאמר רבינו ז"ל, שלזאת נקראת המלכות עלמא דאיתגליה. So apart from being called the Malchus, kingdom of emanation, it's called the Shechina. It's called, all the kingdoms are called the Shechina, but specifically that one. And it's called Koach HaDibur, the power of speech. It's also called Alma D'Itgalia, the world, the revealed world. So if you call it speech, you understand why it's called the revealed world, because as opposed to letters in the mind, meaning thought, which is concealed, speech is revealed. The whole point of speech is to reveal it, and even if there's no one listening, you're still revealing something. So why is it called, so still he wants to explain, so why is this called the revealed world? He's going to give a completely different direction. Not anything, but based on what we've just been learning. כי בה נגלה כוח אור אינסוף לברוא יש מאין שלא על ידי השתלשלות הילה ועלול חולו. Because really what kingdom reveals, specifically the kingdom of emanation, Malchus D'Atzilus, is it allows us to see, to literally see the power of Hashem to bring something out of nothing, being out of non-being. And again, we said it's not that what came before is non-being really, it's just that we can't perceive, we don't see the connection. So we look at our physical world and we don't see any connection back to God. There is no connection, you can't see it. Yeah, I mean, you can surmise that there is a connection, you can try to go backwards in time and say, in the end this must have come from God in some way, but you don't see it in your day-to-day life. Only a soul that's at the level of emanation, whose consciousness is at the level of emanation, will see that. But even the soul who is at the level of emanation still understands physical things. And when they look at a physical thing, it's not so simple that they'll see the godliness in it. It's not so simple. They have to work for that also. The Alter Rebbe said that he only achieved this at the end of his life, at the very, very end of his life. Then he said, I see in the beam, in the roof, I see koach hapoel banifal. I see not even the godliness, but I see the power of godliness that's holding this together.
Less than.
And it's less than still
Yes,
seeing
yes,
like
yes.
Avraham saw. Avraham saw creation coming from God. But it's very hard to see that. So
He said it in front of him. He was only young.
the Tzemach Tzedek was listening, right? The Tzemach Tzedek was present. Right. ורוצה לומר שבעניין הבריאה מאין לי יש בביאה, ואף על פי שמצד עצם הנבראים הם למטה מטה במדרגה מהנאצלים ואין ארוך ממש ביניהם, מכל מקום מבחינת כוח אלוקי המהווה אותן מאין לי יש, ניכר בזה יותר כוח אור אינסוף ברוך הוא הבלתי בעל גבול ממה שניכר גדולתו יתברך על ידי השתלשלות הנאצליים. So he says, when we look at the, call it the spiritual level, or the importance, or the hierarchy of creation, certainly everything that exists at the level of the three lower worlds is less than what exists at the level of emanation. So the prime example would be the difference between our souls, we're down here, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So we're much less than they are. That would be the best example. Another example would be the spheros, but again, saying the spheros gets us into all kinds of questions, but still, we can use that also. The sphirot, the one, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, which Avram, Isaac, and Jacob are like the archetypes of, the soul archetypes of. They're much higher than any soul. Even the souls of, we'll see, of even Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're even higher than them. So God first created the sphirot. And he first created them. When we say first, we don't mean that they came first. We don't mean chronologically. We mean in terms of their importance, in terms of their hierarchy, they come first. Why? Because in order, like we said, to take the unlimited, the limitless, and bring it into something finite, you have to have a sphera. You have to have this vessel in the middle that's making this translation. Yet, despite the fact that we're much lower hierarchically, and that's why we picture it as one being over the other, emanation being over creation, formation, and action. Atzilut is above Bia. Still, Hashem is more revealed in Bia than he is in Atzilus. He's more revealed in the three lower worlds. In what way? In terms of his power, his infinite power to create something out of nothing. That is more revealed here than it is there. Because, again, we see here that things stand, and we don't know where they came from. In the world of a nation, there's no such thing. It's called the shtalshalus. It's called the cause and effect, and you see the cause and effect. It's like billiard balls hitting one another. You see where it all came from. You can go backwards. In our world, it's like out of nowhere, a ball starts moving. And we don't know why it's moving. But it's moving. Even in ourselves, we can't trace back the life force that gives us life. We feel it, we don't know where it comes from. We don't understand its origin. And so as great as the beings, the sphirot and the souls of emanation are, they don't reveal God's infinite power. They rather reveal something that's much more limited. It's a much higher aspect of God, but it's limited in the sense that it doesn't stand. It doesn't give independence. It's not something from nothing. It's missing that element. So they're also not independent, like we said. They can't do whatever they want. In a certain sense, Avram can't do whatever Avram wants, because Avram is so batal. He's called a merkava lashchina. He's like a chariot in the hands of the chariot driver. He can't do whatever he wants. And Malach for sure.
No, but
the Malachim are even lower.
He is Malach-like. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Right. Because he's given up, he's chosen to be there.
Yes.
A Malach is even lower because they're only from the three lower worlds in general.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay,
Yes.
they're even lower than souls.
Yes.
But in any case, so now he says, Ki af שמעלת הנצלים גדולה מאוד לנרוך המעלת הנבראים. It's incommensurate. In terms of hierarchy, that which is emanated is infinitely greater in terms of hierarchy, as its importance, than those things that were created. Again, that are in the three lower worlds. מכל מקום, התהוותן מן החוכמה ולמטה, הוא בבחינת עילה ועלול כנ"ל. Still, everything in emanation, we call it ilah ve'alul, that it knows its origin. It's coming out of wisdom, or it's everything from wisdom until foundation of the world of emanation is ilah ve'alul. מה שאין כן התהוות הנבראים, שהוא מאין ליש ממש, הרי זה אף לפלא גדול ועצום לאין ארוך ממש מההשתלשלות אילה ועלול, שהוא בחינת יש מיש. But what comes into being in the lower three worlds, it's as if it comes out of nothing. It's much greater in terms of its wonder, how wondrous it is. And when you look at it, when you see it, when you appreciate nature, looking at the physical world, you appreciate God's ability to create ex nihilo, something from nothing, much more than when you look at the spiritual worlds. Much, much more. And it's a different process. The process above is called the yesh miyesh. The process in the world of emanation is called something from something. And again, we don't mean that there was something or wasn't something before. We mean, can you trace it back? So there it looks something from something. You see where it came from. Right away. There's no question where it came from. It comes from God. Here, everything's open. Everything is in question. It's because it's yesh me'ayin. We can't see the origin. We can't see the source. ואם כן בהבריאה מאין ליש הוא שנגלה כוח אינסוף ברוך הוא, כי הוא לבדו בכוחו ויכולתו לברוא יש מאין ואפס המוחלט, ממש בלי שום סיבה אחרת קודמת ליש הזה. And again, when you look at the creation, the three lower worlds, all the things that inhabit these three lower worlds, again, these states of consciousness which are separate, this is where you see the infinite revelation of Hashem to make something from nothing. Now, notice that he has not talked about anything physical yet. He hasn't. Maybe you thought he was. He hasn't been talking yet about anything physical. He's only been talking about spirituality. So let's trace this in the mind. He's saying that there are four states of mind. The state of emanation, creation, formation, and action. In the state of mind of emanation, all the person's thoughts, everything he's thinking, everything he's doing, everything he's experiencing, he feels is godly. He traces it right back to the origin. And so his mind doesn't stand separate. In the lower three states, he cannot trace it back. There is a gap, there is a curtain in between, so he can't see where the origin is. And yet he's saying the state of mind of the three lower worlds is revealing, that's why it's called the Alma D'Idgalia, the revealed world. It's revealing God's power to create something from nothing. But this was all spiritual. He hasn't yet said anything about anything physical, but now he's going to say something about something physical. מה שאין ביכולת שום נברא ונאצל להוות. Now he uses a new word, להוות, to bring into existence. This is God's name. This is the root of God's name. Yud Kei Vav Kei is from this root, lehavot. He brings into existence. So he says, the sages say that if all the people in the world got together, they could not create afilu kanaf katan shel zvuv. There it says shel yitush. I don't know why he changed it. Maybe somebody changed it. I don't know. Even the small wing of a fly. Now that's very strange, because we're building stuff that's more than flies. In fact, you could say our flies are better than God's flies. In many ways. Much, much better. They don't reproduce yet, but soon they will. And we make things. So how can you say we can't make the wing of a fly? We make the wing of a 787. We make the wing of an Airbus 380. We make the wing of an F-35. Exactly. It's an interesting that it's not right. That's the point. So he says we said that Chassidus is you have to take this. This is the same of the sages. I don't know. I don't remember from where. I didn't have time to look it up.
הם לא מייצרים בן אדם.
No.
בן אדם מת.
No, well, that will also be. But it'll be yesh miyesh, like you just said. We need to translate the sayings of the sages based on Chassidus. We said this. You have to have a dictionary in your hands. So anytime you come across the saying of the sages, they said it 1,500, 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago sometimes. Their words stand, but they have to be understood properly. And the more knowledge we gain, the more technology we have an appreciation of dimensions of what they said that maybe they even didn't know. Maybe they even weren't fully aware of. I don't think they weren't fully aware because they say it with such exact articulation. They use the exact words and they stand behind these words that it's almost impossible that they didn't understand it very similar to the way we understand it now. I don't think they saw into the future that we would make planes. I don't think that, and I don't think that they thought, maybe they did, maybe they thought we'd make flies and hornets and who knows what else we can make. But what they meant, he says, is that we can't get together to make something from nothing. That we can't do. All that we make is always something from something. In other words, you understand the origin. You'll never look at a plane and say, wow, this came out of, and if you do, you're a fool. There's an example that Richard Dawkins liked to bring in his books, which to me proves exactly the opposite. He says, what if you would find a Rolex in the Sahara? You'd be walking through the Sahara, there's nothing there, and you suddenly see a Rolex. There's no people around, so where did this come from? So the conclusion, he says, is that the Sahara can produce Rolexes. I hope I'm quoting him right because it's been so many years since I read the Selfish Gene. I don't even remember what the binding looks like. I hope I'm doing it justice to the way he said it. And you'd have to come to the conclusion that since there is nothing here, it just takes billions of years to make it, but eventually it comes out. And my conclusion from that is that it's clear, and I think people argued with him about this. Again, I hope I'm doing it justice. I might not be, and so forgive me if I don't remember exactly how he said it. To me, it just means that somebody lost it. Meaning, there had to be intelligence in between. And when we say intelligence, what we mean is that the cause of this thing is a cause and effect structure, a chain of events that you can trace back. You have to be able to trace it back. It's just that intelligence cuts down evolutionary time. What intelligence does is it makes it possible to make great leaps in evolution very, very quickly. But it's still a cause and effect chain. But that's what intelligence does. Now, when we say that Hashem created the world something from nothing, created creatures something from nothing, and so on, what we're saying is that if you try to trace it back, you won't be able to get to the origin. You'll never come back to an intelligent origin. That's what we're saying. Intelligence will not carry the day here. It won't. Because there's a leap. There's an incredible leap. This needs to be thought about a lot.
In other words,
Even if you go back and you try to say, how did we get from a point of singularity of energy that goes through some kind of symmetry break and causes the Big Bang and causes matter to come out and causes this and causes that, you'll never end up with a fly. Never. You will never be able to fill in the gaps. Not because you can't imagine them, because it won't make sense. You'll never be able to trace that process with just cause and effect.
so much effort has been put into it. They think they have.
No, they have a theory.
They have
no
but
proof
for
of
them, it's.
What we're saying here is that these things, when we say they come something out of nothing, what we mean is that it's not an intelligent cause and effect chain. There's something, there's a leap here. We're not saying that, of course it came out of somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's not something that you could trace back just with intelligence.
Yes.
intelligence, even though intelligence makes great leaps, and you can make a Rolex, and you can lose it in the Sahara, and it looks,
Yes, you can.
and you could say in a certain sense that he's right. The Sahara gave birth to the Rolex because the Sahara gave birth to the human, and so on. But you won't be able to trace it back. There's some leap here that can't be explained. It's not that it didn't happen. It happened, but it's like a curtain. There's like something blocking us. So today, all the cosmologists today say we have a curtain in front of our heads, in front of our eyes, and they agree to it. It's called the cosmic background radiation, the CBR. That's like a curtain in front of our eyes. We can't see beyond it. So we see this 3-degree cosmic background radiation as far back as we look in every single direction, and we can't see anything beyond it, which means we can't see back in time. So that right now is the curtain. The curtain changes every generation. It changes. So even if we get to see through the CBR, there'll be another curtain afterwards. And then you'll suddenly discover that there's many curtains even on Earth. We don't know. We can't describe how you get from inanimate matter to life. We can't explain that. There's all kinds of theories that maybe under certain conditions it can happen, but nobody can show it. It's a curtain right now. We can't see beyond it. So this always has to exist because he's saying this is at the root of our 3 lower worlds. Okay, so we'll continue with this tomorrow.
קיבלתי את ה... עוד לא קיבלתי את אלה.
אני אתן לך.